Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White, where we explore the perspectives of individuals making a difference in our communities. I'm your host, Charles King, and today we have a special guest with us, Mr. Justin Loftin. Justin is a public servant dedicated to serving his constituents and helping businesses thrive through his consulting work. Let me just tell you guys a little bit about about Justin, forgive me. Justin Loftin is a public servant, consultant, and capacity building professional. In 23, Loftin became the first openly gay politician in Pike County and second openly gay politician in Mississippi's history, defeating a 24-year Democratic incumbent to represent Pike County's first district. In his first 59 days, Justin was appointed to serve as the president of the Pike County Board of Supervisors, where he charted the county's first crime commission to examine the socioeconomic facilitators of youth-related violent crime and identify evidence-based intervention strategies that prevent crime and promote public safety. Under his leadership, the Pike County Board of Supervisors has strengthened its relationship with the 14th Circuit Court, the District Attorney's Office, the Pike County Sheriff's Office, and the Public Defender's Office to implement a jail census that has led to the release of nonviolent offenders whose constitutional rights were violated, and has plans to release another 50 inmates accused of non-violent crimes by the summer of 24. Justin actively works with the Pike County Youth Court to identify effective, sustainable, and youth-friendly programs that divert youth from the juvenile justice system and aim to equip youth with the tools that reduce their chances of recidivating. Justin has nearly a decade of professional experience in public health. He currently serves as a training manager at the Southern AIDS Coalition in their Department of Community Investments. In this role, he trains medical providers across 16 states from the District of Columbia in stigma reduction, cultural humility, and health literacy. Lofton also serves as the founding program facilitator for the Teen Health Mississippi's My Innovation Program, and previously worked for the organization as its founding program coordinator, which led to his promotion to the Director of Youth Engagement. Over the last 5 years, he has worked as a policy consultant for Mississippi's 98th House District under the leadership of State Representative Darrell Porter Jr. Born and raised in Macomb, Mississippi, Justin was a student of the Macomb School District before graduating from his Mississippi School of Arts in 2010. He obtained a bachelor's degree in organizational management from Lipscomb University and a master's degree in political management from George Washington University. Justin believes in the power of youth, people, and is committed to changing the narrative to forge intergenerational partnerships that lead to change. He believes that young people are the manifestation of their resilience, not the victims of their circumstances. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you all to Mr. Justin Loftin. Good evening, sir.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Awesome. How are you?
I'm doing just excellent. Is there anything you'd like to add to that wonderful bio? Because I tell you, it's definitely stating some things that you're doing that I think a lot of people need to know about.
Nothing that I will add to that, but what I will say is thank you so much for the opportunity to just briefly share on your platform today. I think it's always a good opportunity to share the good work and also provide maybe strategies that we're using here, or strategies that I've used in my work that could help other people and inform their work as well. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, you're very much welcome, and we're glad to have you. Let's dive into your career here as a public servant. Can you share with our listeners how you got started in this field and what drives your passion for serving others?
So, public service for me is a really huge thing. I can actually recall from when I was a young person in school, and there were times where I would have lunch money. And there were maybe some of my peers that didn't have money. And at this time, I was at Denman Junior High, right across the street from the high school. And I would give away my lunch money to others who I felt needed it more than me. And at the time, not recognizing that there were a bunch of socioeconomic facilitators that were impacting my mom. We were living in poverty. We lived off social insurance, paying $16 a month for rent and things of that nature. She worked a fast food job and worked at Sanderson Farms, which is a chicken plant here. And so during that time is kind of when I started to realize that maybe I had a heart for people. Beyond that, right after high school, I attended school in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and came across an organization that was looking for some volunteers. And when I began to volunteer, I really took a genuine interest in the public health work that I was doing. So it was basically recruiting young folks to a organization to participate in an intervention. And so from there, that kind of helped me to transition to the Kaiser Family Foundation, where I was a consultant for them. And basically, we work with colleges and universities. We work with medical providers and folks in the communities who were disproportionately affected by sexually transmitted diseases and infections to really provide them information so they can make well-informed decisions about their health. That took me further into public health, actually helped me land my first professional job at Streetworks in Nashville, Tennessee. And that was an opportunity where I actually came in as a patient navigator or peer navigator, but then was maybe 8 months in promoted to the program manager for that particular program. And from there, everything just took off. And so that's kind of how I got started. And it's continued to be a joy for me to be able to see the impact that I am making in the lives of others. And I'm just truly excited to continue that work through my current capacities and any future capacities that I may be a part of. So,
Wow. So that's interesting. So basically, in just being you, you've always been an advocate for helping others, is what you're saying.
yeah.
So being like, so as your life has transpired from junior high school to where you are now, uh, what were some of the things that you did in between to continue to enhance this?
Well, obviously, I think for me, one of the important things is just because you have a job does not mean that you know it all. We should always, as people, seek further information, further knowledge about how we can improve ourselves, not only personally, but also professionally. And so there were many trainings that I went through, some sponsored by my job, some that I did on my own. There were many different programs that I participated in outside of training, like fellowships and internships. One particular internship with My Brother's Keeper, which is a public health internship that was in 2014, 2015, really opened my eyes to the horizon of things that were out there as it pertains to public health. I was able to write a paper on that, specifically on pre-exposure prophylaxis, which is PrEP, that is used to prevent the transmission or the acquisition of HIV at the time. And so I wrote a paper on that with Dr. Leandro Mena, who is an infectious disease provider for the CDC right now, actually. And from that, it really kind of opened up many more doors for me. And so it was an enjoyable experience. And those are just some of the things that I did to really help to elevate me and to grow me personally and professionally in this field.
Oh, wow. So, what inspired you to pursue a career in public service?
The heart. Public service is hard work. It's not something that is made for everybody. And I think for me, when you look around your community, when you look at the data, specifically that informs you around STI, STD transmission among young people. That was the thing. Like my heart said, you've got to do something about it. When it came down to becoming a politician or public servant in that capacity, it was looking around my community and recognizing that I needed to do something. But leaning on that some more, there was a book that I read by Majora Carter called You Shouldn't Have to Leave Your Own Community to Find a Better One. And that book literally had me in tears, because oftentimes as young people, as millennials and everything else, we see the Atlanta, we see the Dallas, we see the New York. We want to take our talents that taxpayers in our communities through ad valorem taxes have paid to educate us and inform us and really shape us into who we are today, take it to a whole nother city, a whole nother state, and give it to those people. When right at home in your backyard where you were raised, there are people who are living in poverty. There are people who live in paycheck to paycheck, can't put food on the table, where crime is high, where we don't have parks in some of our neighborhoods, where we don't have access to high quality healthcare and health insurance. We don't have streets that are sometimes safe to drive on because they are dilapidating right underneath us. And so at a point in time, I realized, why am I giving my time, my energy, and my attention and my talent and skill set to other people where my community needs it the most? And I think that is why I do public service, because there's a need. And there's a quote from Shirley Chisholm that I'm sure you'll be very familiar with, which is, "Service is the rent we pay for the privilege of living on this earth." And it's something that I really lean on. So my public service and my service to people is the rent that I'm paying to be here on this earth. And I think all of us in some way, shape, or form have public service in us.
Oh, wow. I want you to know that was all that. That was all that. People really need to get this, because, oh, wow. And I wasn't expecting all that, but I want you to know that right there, we need to make that a quote. We've got to make that a quote, because that's about as real can get. Stop looking gazy-eyed all at these other places and look at where you are.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That was all that. I appreciate that, and I'm sure that people that are listening to this show are definitely going to appreciate that, because everywhere is going to be everywhere. But where you are, as long as you're building where you are, the rest is just history, because other people are going to follow you, especially when you're doing it the right way.
And you know what? You hit the nail on the head. Where you are is where you are. If I choose to leave because something doesn't exist here that I need, then who is going to be responsible for the next generation so that they don't have to leave, to find that job, to find that opportunity, to come out of whatever situation that they're in? So we can choose to make the excuse that it's not my job, but at the end of the day, creating great communities with great access, great resources where people can live, play, work, and thrive is all of our responsibility. You may not be the people in the boardroom leading at that table, but you may be the person in the community that has some influence over young people who may be killing other folks out there that can change the narrative. You may be the doctor who decides to put a clinic in what we will call the hood in some places, in a community who ordinarily wouldn't have one of those. And so there's a lot of opportunity, and I think sometimes we can't see the forest because of the trees that are right there in front of us.
Wow. See, that's definitely inspiring. But I want to ask you this: as a public servant, what are some of the key initiatives or projects that you have worked on to address the needs of your constituents?
Ooh, there's a list. And here's the crazy thing. I've been in public politics. I'll say this. I've been in politics literally for a while, working for other people, but as a actual politician myself, got elected in November. Since then, when I was sworn in January, on January the 2nd, the first initiative was the Crime Commission. One of the things that we saw in our community is that youth-related or youth-involved crime was really high. But there were so many people, you look on Facebook, at the newspaper, and everybody has an opinion about what's going on, about how we fix it. But as a person with somewhat of a research background, the first thing you have to do is understand the root of it. And I sought out, and what I want to do with this was to look at what are the facilitators of youth-related violent crime. A lot of people say, well, it's the mother, the single mother that had the kid and now they're out there. That may or may not be true. A lot of folks say that it's poverty. That may or may not be true. And so with this particular initiative, it was seeking to understand those things. And now we're at a point to where we're putting together focus groups and surveys to be able to capture additional information that will ultimately translate into strategies and interventions that will go into a full comprehensive crime reduction strategy among young people. The other thing that I am working on right now with some of my peers around the table, actually brought it to them today, is how we can incentivize local businesses and industries to hire previously incarcerated people, whether they had a misdemeanor or a felony. We can't talk about economic development. We can't talk about the increasing the labor force participation rate if we continue to intentionally and blatantly discriminate against folks who have been incarcerated, who will likely recidivate because they're going to come out without their job and go back into the same environment again. People who haven't had the proper mental health opportunities to be rehabilitated. That's why another initiative was partnering with the University of Mississippi School of Education, where they train counselors there, and under the supervision of their professors, they will be providing mental health services to inmates at the jail to ensure that we can probably help them sort through some better decision-making and conflict resolution skills so that when they come out, maybe their mind frame is just a little bit different. So those are just three of the things that are happening. But even outside of that, working right now with our community college to figure out how we can put a workforce training center at our jail so that those folks who are currently in jail, who are going to be there 8 weeks or more, that they can go and get a trade in welding, they can get a trade in manufacturing or auto mechanics. They can take 2 college courses a semester or get their GED. And so when they come out, they're placed in a job and potentially have up to 2 months of free housing assistance so they don't have to go back into that same environment. These are the revolutionary reforms that I think are necessary for the change that we want to create in our communities. Everybody has a voice. Everybody has a need. We just have to have the right people at the table with the right initiatives to make it happen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm with you on that. And, I want to just say that everything that you just hit on, which is why I'm so proud and honored that you wanted to be with us, this is what this platform is about. It's about those very things. It's about building communities, not tearing them down, but building them. As we build them piece by piece, we connect dot by dot. It could be from Mississippi to North Carolina. Somebody's probably going to see something that you're doing, and they probably want to reach out to you and say, "Hey, I want to learn, what did you do?" Because as we build these communities, believe me, we're going to make a whole lot of difference here by the end of 2024. I can guarantee you that.
That's the goal. That's the goal. Do the most good while you can.
Yes, sir. How do you stay connected with your constituents and ensure their voices are heard?
One of the things that I did early on, right before I launched my campaign, was I talked to law enforcement. I talked to stakeholders in our community, organizations, elected officials, and the people who are most disproportionately impacted by some of the things that they face. And that really helped me to form a real comprehensive 29-point strategy of things that I wanted to achieve once I was elected. Now, being in office, one of the things that I do, I like to regularly pull up on a block in my district and just knock on the doors. Hey, how are you? Having a conversation. Hey, we paved your road. What else can we do for you? What are you thinking? How can we be of support? Even now, kind of going back to the Crime Commission, taking those focus groups and those surveys back into the community as well to get their input, because a strategy that is built without the input of the folks that are most affected is a failure. it has to be informed by the people who will benefit and use it the most. And so that is another way that we're doing that. And there are people in my community who I am very close to who are hearing things that are happening in the community. Even if I'm not there, I have people who have ears to the ground that are bringing these things back to me. And most importantly, one of the things I talked about during the campaign trail is that we've got to have more transparency. People oftentimes move away from their civic duty of voting because they oftentimes don't see why they voted in the first place. The road wasn't paved. Their life didn't get any better. The groceries, the expenses for groceries didn't go down. These are things that people are looking at. And so I have been one of the people in our community who, when I do something or when our board does something, we put it out there. I want to let them know that we are working for you. Even if you don't attend the meeting, you can't make it. I want you to see that every single day we go into work, that we are doing things. We're checking off the box to make sure that we're advocating and standing in the gap for everybody and their voice.
Wow. So, have you established an economic commission to delve down into some economic statistics for your constituents?
So not necessarily that. So we have something called the Pike County Economic Development District, and that's led by a wonderful woman named Jill Busby, who has done a phenomenal job bringing a lot of businesses and retail chains to our community. That's created hundreds of jobs just in the last year and a half or so. So she has a board of 20, 30 some odd folks who are there who really lead that charge. She has an executive board of about 9 or 10 folks that are a part of that as well in the decision making. And one of her responsibilities is that she goes out there. We pay her as a county to go out there and collect this information. We can pay her, as well as Southwest Mississippi Planning and Development District, to do an overall comprehensive look at the counties across Southwest Mississippi, where the need is, whether it's more workforce development, whether it's more job training, whether it's more creating just more jobs overall. Those are the things. And one of the other things I want to say about Jill is that when she's looking at this data, it's helping her to say, well, we meet the median income to bring a business here to create this job. For example, we may want to Raising Cane's, but if Raising Cane's says that the median income of this community needs to be $50,000 before we move there, then her job is figuring out how we bring in the most jobs with the highest paying wages and salaries that's going to get us to that place so that we can create additional jobs for that. So it's a piece by piece step, and she doesn't need my help. She does a really great job.
Good job to her. Good job to her. Your dedication to your constituents is truly commendable. Shifting gears to your consulting work, can you tell us more about the services you provide and how you help businesses succeed?
Yes, so it's kind of twofold. So the first part of consulting started with political consulting. So as you know, as you read in my bio, I did go to George Washington University to get my master's in political management. Phenomenal program, and I encourage some of these folks on here who may be watching to even consider it if they're interested. What that did was allow me to kind of open the door to provide political consulting to lawmakers who are running for office in the state legislature, local elections, whether it was mayor, selectmen, whatever it is. I even ran a race in Memphis, Tennessee, and although she lost by about 20 votes, she ended up being appointed to the position anyway because she did so well. And so that consulting looks like building your entire campaign plan, building out what your budget is going to look like for this, looking at your marketing. How should the community perceive what you are trying to say? How do we put it in layman's terms so that they understand that you are for them? So those are some of the things that I would, even down to mailers, communication pieces, all of those things. Now, I've kind of taken a step back from that because it kind of gets a little messy and becomes conflict of interest now that I'm an elected official. I do more business consulting. So I work for a lady here, and I kind of assist with some of her business work as it pertains to some of the property that she owns, as well as looking for potential developers or investors who potentially want to invest in her. That also includes things like marketing for her Facebook page and things of that nature as well. Two other businesses I've done some marketing consulting for, developing their marketing and branding strategies they want to release when they open later this year for business. And they're going to be creating more jobs as well. And so those are some of the consulting pieces that I've done. Outside of that, with Teen Health Mississippi, as listed in my bio, I do work for them as a program facilitator, project coordinator for Mississippi Youth Innovation. And that is a consultant or a contractor role as well, where I work and co-develop a intervention around sexual reproductive health for young people who attend HBCUs. And so we've built out the curriculum right now. We're piloting it. We've done up to 90 young folks already that attend HBCUs to have another focus group or a pilot in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then we're going to be packaging it up so that we can roll it out in the fall at HBCUs across the South at this point. And so those are just some of the consulting and contractual capacities that I've worked in.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a lot. And it sounds like it's something that definitely hits the spot, especially when you talk about branding and marketing, because that in itself is a wild, wild animal that can definitely get loose.
It is. It's one of those things that I really don't like to do. But when I see the finished product and the folks that I work with on my team who help to make it happen, it's exciting. Especially when people are in their races because of it.
Right. Oh, well, see, that's what I'm talking about. Can you share a memorable experience from your time as a public servant? I'm sure there's many.
Actually, a very recent one. We Representative Porter and his fiance got together and organized a surprise visit to 4 nursing homes locally. He had 2 more in another county across the county line, but it was 4 locally. And so we were able to provide 217 gifts to women on Mother's Day, whether they were a mother or not. We made them feel special at these nursing homes. And there were some rooms that you would walk into and you can feel the excitement kind of reverberating in the room. One lady, she just kind of, for me. And you know, when these people kind of sit in this space for a while, they may not be at their best, but seeing the smile on their face for me was so rewarding. And I look forward to possibly doing this again with Representative Porter and his fiance, hopefully his wife by then, next year around the same time. So.
Okay. What challenges have you faced in your role and how have you overcome them?
Selling the idea. It's kind of like being a car salesman. You want to say it's got all this horsepower, it's got a 14, 15-inch screen and all these things to make it, you know, it drives a little bit longer than another similar vehicle. And that's essentially one of my challenges that I see, is that what is the vehicle for inspiring others to buy into the idea that you've come up with to create the change that you want to see? And being able to listen to the other voices around the table. Yes, I was duly elected just like the other 4 members around the table that I sit with, but they also have ideas. And what I found to be challenging, but also such a rewarding blessing, is that we are all on the same page as far as what we want to see. We just have different ways that we think about getting there. But when we all get together on those individual calls, we say, hey, bro, what you think about this? What you think about this? We start to compile what everybody wants, and then it becomes an ordinance that we can put out there because we work together collectively. And it's tiring, it's exhausting, but it's meaningful work. The other thing is there are political ideology becomes a very huge thing. There are folks that, well, why do you work with Republicans? I don't give a care if you're a Republican or a Democrat or independent. At the end of the day, as long as we're doing the most good for the most people in the process, we're not looking at how we ran. We're looking at how we create the change. And
Right.
so I've heard backlash about that, but I've heard a lot of good, rewarding things about that. So that becomes a challenge. I think the final piece is, I want to say, a bit of relationship salvaging a little bit. And I say that because in this work, you might not like somebody. You may not like the way that they move, but at the end of the day, you got to work with them. And what I have found is that it is hard to do good work when you have people on the outside who have an opinion about who you can and cannot work with to get things done. I'm not in fifth grade, and I think some people act like they're in the fifth grade. They don't want you talking to certain people, doing certain things, or making change in your community. But you know what? That's all okay, because God placed me in a very unique position to be of service to other people. And I recognize that because of the God that I serve, that it won't always be easy. But if he puts you up to do it, he will take you all the way through that thing. And so you're going to lose people in this process. That's a challenge. You're going to go through things in this process. That's a challenge. But at the end of the day, it's all worth it in the end, because I was called to do it.
Right. Oh, wow. I got to tell you, do you ever feel like sometimes that there's always been a halo over you that's put you in this point now? Seriously, that's put you in this point, in this situation right now, that all of the things that you've ever thought about, the things you want to do, they're now coming to be. And people are now actually seeing the true Justin.
I don't know. And the reason that I say that is, sometimes, if I think about politics at least, sometimes I think I played a pivotal role in the background of politics, helping other people get elected, because maybe it was ultimately the thing that I wanted to do, but I didn't feel like I was qualified. And so when you talk about this halo, almost like being ordained or called to maneuver through this path.
Exactly.
Maybe so. I will say that if there wasn't a halo, there was a person who I think was a vessel for me. It was October 2023-ish. Oh no, actually October 2022. I was facilitating a forum of judicial candidates who were running for office. And I was walking to my car, and a lady walked up to me. She's an older lady in her 60s. And she said, "Can I just pray for you real quick?" I live in the Bible, but that's normal. But when she prayed and when she got done, she said, "I don't know what it is, but God told me to come and tell you that you've been called to run for office. It's on." I looked at the lady like, no. I got all the odds against me. Here I am. I'm a Black person. And if I got elected, I'd be at a table with, again, at this point in time, the political ideology with 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats. What power would I have to create change? What am I going to do differently? 2, I'm a gay man. And in the South, in the Bible Belt especially, being of the queer community is like the worst sin, because people, for whatever reason, care more about what you do in the bedroom and less about what you do in the boardroom. It never made sense to me. Like, how does my private life deal with decisions that actually positively affect your life? Make it make sense, folks. So I just didn't see a real pathway for me to win. But I sat on it, and she called me maybe a week later. She said, "Did you make up your mind?" I said, "Yeah, I did." And that was the initiating moment. And that's when I say she was the halo, she was the vessel in the moment that helped me to see what the calling was, because I was avoiding it, thinking that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't equipped.
But well, I'm sure you know this by now, Justin, but you can't see yourself like other people see you.
Biggest critic.
Well, see, that's just the thing. You know, when you're striving to be the best that you are and you know what you can be, that's why the perfection part kicks in.
Mhm.
But that's from your own perspective, but you don't know what other you don't see yourself like other people can see you. Because sometimes you can have that light around you. And some people say, "Hey, I know who that is," and you might
Mhm.
not know them from Adam's house cat, but they can
Yeah.
come to you and they just give it to you, right?
Mm. That's
That's the
powerful.
natural cause.
I hear that
That is the
for sure.
natural cause. And so see, it's like, people like you don't come around every day, but I can tell you that when that light is shining, you need to make sure that it stays bright. Nothing should ever dull it. And I'm just, let me just move on because we ain't preaching and we ain't in church.
Make me have I got tears in my eyes because you just don't understand. It's been rough. It's
Well,
been it's it's been rough. I think people on the outside, they see what you give them.
mhm.
They don't go home with you at night. They don't see the anxiety, the depression, the how hard I am on myself to be a perfectionist, to do the best job that I can, with what I have, the resources that I've been given. Um, the managing of the relationships with family and friends, how you become very absent because you're so busy trying to do good. Um, and it's hurtful because you feel like you lose people and you lose a part of yourself in the process. Um, so I'll leave that there. When you said that, it kind of got me just really choked up because it's been rough. It's been rough.
Well, you know what? I'm much older than you, but I'm going to tell you this. And that is, you know, I know of that situation and that roughness that you speak of because I myself thought that I always had to be perfect. And I even have that some of that right now where I kind of like I'm learning to like relax a whole lot more about that. But I understand that struggle. But I'm going to tell you, as you do what you do and you continue to get the results that you get, I think over time you're going to start to relax a whole lot more because there's nothing to prove, you
Yeah.
know. And those that just don't understand that, they just don't understand that. But what they ain't getting, believe me, a lot of other people get that and they want a whole lot more of what you're giving. I can tell you that.
Thank you for that.
I can tell you that. That's the honest to God truth.
Yeah. Mm.
How do you balance your work as a public servant with your consulting business?
It's a nightmare. um, so from 8 to 5, I only do my full time job work. And then I take about 2 hours after that to do my part time consulting work, whatever piece I'm working on that day of the week. And then outside of that, I'll be here in my office where I am now on my computer writing grants for the county because we don't have a grant writer, but that's a skill set that I have. So I use it to bring funds in. I sit here thinking about programs, drafting new ordinance ideas, uh, meeting folks. So it's a lot of late nights, a lot of sleep lost. But again, I don't complain about it because again, when you see the product, when it hits home that you can say that you had a part or a piece of doing that thing that made somebody else's life just a little bit better, it makes it all worth it. But what I will say that balancing that gets a little bit hard because I never celebrate the small victories in the process. Because once I'm done with the one thing and whatever the job I'm working on at whatever hour, I'm always looking for the next big thing. I
Mhm.
never feel fulfilled. And it's maybe something's wrong with me, but maybe I'm just ambitious. I don't know. But that makes the balance of my work hard because I never just pause.
Being insatiable is good sometimes. Just face it. Hell, being insatiable is just good. you know. For some people, hey, that don't work, but that works for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell my family that. And my friends.
Uh, what advice would you give to aspiring public servants looking to make a difference?
Hmm. If you lead with your heart, you'll never make a wrong decision.
Mm,
And I say that because, like I said, when we started this call, uh, I got into this work because of heart. This is heart work.
mhm,
Um, and for me, there's not a decision, an idea, a thing that wasn't stimulated from seeing somebody else's circumstance or experience. Because when I encountered those folks, it was hard. For somebody else in their community, it may be that they find heart in opening up a bank or a clinic because they see that there are people who need it in their community. They've experienced other people who could rely on this resource a little bit more.
right.
So I say, if you lead and you drive and you pursue things with heart, not for how it makes you look, not for how many votes it's going to get you, because elections are not guaranteed.
Mhm.
And you can do a whole lot of good work and lose. But if you do a whole lot of good work that comes from the heart, if you lose, it doesn't matter because you know you did the best that you could with the most heart that you had.
Mm. So in other words, as long as you do it from the heart, it's always good. That's very sound advice. Because I'm sure there's plenty of young politicians, especially where you are, that
Mhm.
wants to get into the field, but they too are probably having that skeptical feeling of not being good enough.
Yeah, and they do. And again, like I said before, sometimes people do this for power. But what
Mhm.
is power without the consequence of positive change?
You
What
know,
is it?
you're exactly right.
What is it? Who wants power just to have it?
Well, you know something? You see, I think, well, this is my philosophy,
Mhm.
is that when you see a bunch of younger and younger politicians like yourself that are getting into this arena, they're all coming into this from that different perspective. They're not coming at, oh, I want to have all this power, I want to rule the world. You know, you see, it's that new innovation that they're coming in with where this is strictly for the people, and
Yeah,
the people got this part of it. So if it's for the people, by the people, with the people gonna vote for that person.
that's it.
You
That's it.
know, so it ain't like, oh, I'm spending $5 billion, because I want to make sure I get that seat. I need to buy that seat.
Right.
People ain't doing that no more. And see,
That's
I
it.
think that's what's inspiring this new change, which is why a lot of those folks in politics that have been there for a billion years, them dinosaurs need to go ahead and get on up out of there. But these younger folk are unseating them though.
But you
They're
know what? And I agree with that. And actually, one of the things, so like our mayor here in Macomb, where I live in Pike County,
Mhm.
fantastic mayor, does an amazing job, has led the way to doing some amazing change, but he has amazing people around him that help to inform those ideas and make them better. And so even some of the folks around the board here, they do have amazing ideas and do amazing work in the community. So I'm an advocate of, and this is one of the things that I wanted with the person who I beat. I wanted to leverage my ideas with his wisdom.
Mhm.
Fortunately, I didn't have the opportunity to do that. But what our mayor is able to do, he's able to lead these meetings and lead these folks around this board and be able to use his wisdom and his experience to leverage their ideas and inform them to make them something so much greater than anybody could have seen. So, uh, I appreciate that about him. And I think, and this leads me to the point around the importance of, yes, we do need more young people in politics creating change, but we can't create the change we need to create without effective intergenerational partnerships with the people at the table. Because you got, is it Gen Z? The new
I
young folks,
think is
they
one.
they want to tear it all down and rebuild it, and they got no foundation and nothing no more. Whereas the older folks, the wisdom who's been there, they can show you like, okay, incremental change is good. We can take it block by block and piece it back together and fix it incrementally rather than tearing it down because we know it works. It just maybe needs to be regulated a little bit more.
Right, right, exactly.
So,
So, how do you measure the success of your initiatives in serving the community?
um, so with every initiative that I have put pen to paper on, presented, gotten passed to the board, it all goes into a document. It has narrative, it has goals, outcomes, expected outcomes, has timelines, all these things. So, because like I said, a little bit of a researcher in me, I don't want to just create something and not know if it's actually effective. And so, these surveys, focus groups, these follow ups that are done um, have to align with the outcomes. Did we see a 25% change in increased workforce over time? Did we, because of the crime prevention strategy, reduce crime by 25% in under 6 months? When I put those benchmarks down that I want to meet, if I get there, that's how I know that I got there. But it's also engaging input from the community because they feel it before you even see the data, before you collect the survey or do the focus. They feel all of that before you get it.
Mhm.
So
Well, and so,
that's
so
how.
let me just say, so even with that, so let's just say you've got this data that
Mhm.
that puts everything to in its proper place, and it gives you a reading and so forth. I mean, what in gathering the data, can you tell me what makes it so reliable that you can concretely say when you give out the results are the results?
Because of the people around the table. If I use the crime commission, for example, the people around the table will put there because they have a genuine investment in doing the most good. And when we sit around this table, we go back and forth. What questions should we be asking? What is a realistic goal here? What is happening in our community? Most importantly, what I love, using the crime commission as an example, we have people who actually live in the community, people who've actually been incarcerated, people who've actually been victims of crime, people who actually have worked with people who have been victims or have committed crimes. They have the day-to-day experience to be able to say with confidence what is happening and provide information and ideas to that. And so for me, yeah, the data says one thing, but I can leave that meeting or those meetings with certainty because I know I have the best people in the room who are representative of all of our community, not just the elite part of our community, but the most disproportionately affected folks in our community.
Fair enough. What are some key values that guide your work as a public servant and consultant?
Mm, that's a really good question. I would say that the first thing that comes up for me is it people centered? Am I doing this for my shine or am I doing this because it's a need for the people that I serve? And from there, it's more like, okay, well, how do we do this uh, by leveraging the relationships that we have? Because communities work better when it's collaboration. So whatever I do, one of my values, it has to be active collaboration with the people who need to be at the table having the conversation. And I say the third thing that sticks out to me is doing things with integrity. If you're going to go out here, you're going to do the work. You have to lead with integrity. Otherwise, you are not doing just, equitable, or people-centered work at the end of the day. You're doing it for some other reason. So those are like the three that consistently stay at the forefront of my brain that I think about.
Okay. How do you approach building relationships with community members and businesses?
It's multiple capacities. So one of the things that I think is super critical is there are events that we do all the time in our community. I kind of find it ironic that people say there's nothing to do here. It might not be what you want to do here, but there's plenty to do here. But like the Iron Hustlers, we just had it last weekend. I was a part of the committee that organized it. One of the things that we were able to do was be able to engage with the community in the process at the event. Well, when it comes down to like our local police department, our sheriff's department, when they host events, it's going out there, it's showing your face. It's when there is something that's coming up that's dealing with young people at the Boys and Girls Club who has asked you to be there, build a relationship with those young people so that they see you as maybe a mentor or a leader, but you're also gaining insight from them about what their experiences are and how these things in their community or in their lives are affecting them personally, individually. And so I think that for me is how I engage rather than going out trying to create events for myself where I'm the leader all the time. It's how do I collaborate with somebody else who's doing something, accept that invite, show up, shake hands, and schedule meetings. Let's talk. Let's see how I can utilize your skill set to be a part of this process to make this work. Let's see how I can use your lived experience as a person who's previously incarcerated to inform this part of this thing. Let's see how I can leverage it for you to gather people and organize people around a messaging or an initiative or something like that. That's important. That's how I engage with the community and collaborate with community.
Okay. What motivates you to continue your work in public service and consulting?
The need for change. And I say that because I'm gonna give a prime example. The guy who had the position before me, he fought tooth and nail, and maybe not always in the best way, to secure funding to get roads paved in the district that I currently serve in. He wasn't able to pave the roads, but due to his leadership, he was the one who helped get the funding. And so when I drive down the road and I see the road being paved, that is what I want to see with everything else in my community. That there was an idea that was had, there was resources that was put behind it, and it changed and it made somebody else's life better. I want the same thing for our jail because we're building a new jail. I wanted to make people's lives better through those workforce training programs and mental health so they come out rehabilitated and don't recidivate again. I want the same thing for our young people who need to have their schools fully funded so they can have a good, high quality education and go out there and get the best jobs, go to the best schools, things of that nature. It's the results, getting the results that drive me to continue to do this work, because when I can see it, I know they see it and they believe not only in me, but in the power that government actually works for them.
Oh, wow. So let me just do a follow-up on that because that's a very, very interesting point. And I do love that approach. So tell me, like with the building, I guess with the collaboration part of that, is that how you try to center your entire administration around team building, collaborations in order to make things work for your entire community?
Yeah, that's the goal. It doesn't necessarily happen that way all the time because we have, quorum. So we can only have so many people
Right.
that are on the board with having to have a public meeting. So it looks like me and my peers individually or one-on-one sitting down, having lunch, talking out the idea. I compile that, type it up, it goes to the next person. This is what me and so said. What are your thoughts on this? Getting their input, putting it together, typing it up, sitting with the next person and regurgitating all the information. That type of collaboration is important, and the process is a little more tedious to get there. But that is the way I want to center it. I don't want it to be that Justin solely did anything, because it takes at least at a minimum 3 votes on that board to get anything passed. But what I've enjoyed so far is that because of the type of collaboration that we have fostered starting off, we have unanimous votes in every meeting. We've decided what was important to bring up and how to move forward together collectively this job. So
Mm. Can you share a recent project or initiative that you are particularly proud of?
hmm, I think I might would share. So when I was the director of youth engagement and advocacy at Teen Health Mississippi, I think we went into the second year of what at that time was the Mississippi Youth Summit. It has since, under my leadership, after the first year, changed to the Mobilizing Youth Summit. And under the current leadership of Miss Alexis Hicks, she has expanded that. And what I enjoyed about it is that I was able to help build the footprint of what it could be. And she's taken it. It went from 25 young people to 50, last year to 75. Now this year, going to have up to 150 young people coming from across the region. So it went from being a Mississippi thing to a regional thing that is equipping young people with the knowledge, tools, and information to become advocates in their communities for the change they want to see as well. So that's something that I'm super proud of.
Wow. And so, like, what has been the progress of that particular program or that summit on an annual basis? Because is it done annually?
It's done annually every like around the second week of June every year now.
So, what has been the progress of that over the last 5 years?
So I've stepped away from the organization in that capacity, and Alexis leads it now. But the progress is the first thing you notice is the growth. The second thing you notice is that we are getting a lot more funding, sponsors who are supporting this because they believe in the vision. If you build it right, the people will come. The other thing, again, is the regional approach. That was one of the first things that I tried when I was there, trying to bring young people from, Tennessee and Louisiana. And then COVID hit, so we couldn't do it. But under her leadership, she was able to come out of COVID and go right back to that kind of idea and be able to bring it to life. And so now you got people from all over the South coming to this summit to get educated. And so those are just kind of some of the things that have kind of come out of that, and the progress that has been made. And what I really, really love about it is it's fully youth led. Yeah, we may have laid the foundation for it and built the idea, but the young people inform everything that is done, even down to the content, to the speakers, the presentations, to set up the location. We pay them as consultants to come in and build it, because some adults want to do all the leading. We believe in youth adult partnerships because it's more effective that way, for them, by them.
Right. That makes a lot of sense because then it gives them some, what's that? You want to call it some authority or some take
It's
charge and give them some motivation.
Mhm.
How do you adapt to the changing needs and demands of the community and businesses you serve?
Ask me that question one more time.
How do you adapt to the changing needs and demands of the community and businesses you serve?
I think the first thing is trying to stay informed, because you don't know that something's changing unless you are asking questions, unless you're engaging with the community. The next part of that is, once you know that there's something there, trying to find the solution or the idea to support that thing to fix it. Then that might lead to resources and funding and other things. So again, my main thing is, again, being engaged, being informed, and trying to find the right solution to move the issue forward. It might not be something that happens this year because government, public service runs on funding. We don't have money. We can't make that thing happen. And so it's looking for the right opportunity, looking for the right pool of money out there that's going to support this thing. And again, it could take 6 months, it could take 2 months, it could take 4 or 5 years. Who knows? It may not even happen during my term. But again, being in a loop and being informed is the most important part that starts it all.
And so, what role do you see technology playing in shaping the future of public service and consulting?
I feel like we're in the future now. When you look at how many public servants utilize social media to provide information to the people that they serve, when you look at how on the bad side of the public service, or social media is used to talk about how people do bad public service. I'm not going to call any names, but we see the media. The media also will allow us to be, I think, to engage with our community members more. One of the things, I love about TikTok and Snapchat is that it gives you a different, and Instagram gives you a different audience than you would have on Facebook, which is like aunties, uncles, mom and dad type of stuff. And it allows you to be exposed to what's trending with these young folks and how to reach them. Maybe there's a new reel format or style that you can utilize to present a message to that particular audience. So I think it helps you to build out segments over time. And I think that's going to be the future, especially for politicians, is how we leverage social media to to engage and inform our segmented audiences that we serve.
Let me ask you this, and this is kind of smeary. Do you think that since people have started to use technology and social media, that President Obama has been the best public official to use social media?
I love me some President Obama. So all my Black folks out there, supporters don't hate me. I'm going to go out on a limb. Just looking at this current presidential election, I think Joe Biden has President Obama beat. I think Joe Biden's campaign is doing a really good job. For example, typically ads would be like, "Oh, don't support this person. He is against abortion, or he is against this thing." Now, Joe Biden's campaign doesn't have to do all that because they can literally go pull a stump speech up from the opponent and leverage that whole thing to do it for them. And so, like, why does he have to say, "I endorse this message"? The man said it. It's right there. It's not altered audio. So,
Right. Well, see, let me just say this. So, because at that point, I got to say, you're hands down, that is true, what you just said. What I'm saying is, and I think that they kind of like learned that from their first time in the White House under Obama, because President Obama was using social media in a way that no other politician was even coming close to using it, because he had reached out and pulled in segments of folk, and people from all these youth people from all these different foundations. So what I'm saying is, like, when he used that, he started the advancement, I think, of social media. And so I think the next thing after that is when you saw how the that bullshiggity that was coming out, with all the lies and everything, and which is a different way of using social media, because that too was created because it was weaponized. And so with Biden coming in now, he's now using it in a different way now, where he's doing those things that you're talking about, where let me just use your words. But when he uses words, it's like, it's the way that they're doing that it has to be captivating, at least for those that's got ears and they've got eyes. Because if you got ears and eyes, then you can comprehend what's happening here. But those that don't have that, they have blinders on and they're deaf. They're never.
They don't want to hear it. Well,
Exactly.
Actually, they want to hear the messaging or the narrative that fits their opinion. And For example, I get on X, which is previously Twitter, every day about 15, 20 times, and the election propaganda that is spewed there, the lies, and the thousands of comments that you see under there, when you have proven facts over here on this other page of what's true. What I have learned, and this is not even with politics, but this is even personal. People will choose to believe what they want to believe. And if they wanted additional context and they wanted additional information, if it was that important to them, they would go and get it. But the truth would eliminate all the lies they want to believe. So they don't want the truth. They stick with the lie.
Right. But you see, that's the purpose of the folk that own some of these particular platforms, is that's allowed. But when you come back to critique it and to say this is the truth, that causes you some harm. The truth is the bad way. It's the bad way.
Yep. For prime example, and I'm gonna shut up on this. I saw I don't know if it was an interview or something on social media, but it was somebody, I think in the U.S. Senate, that said, "Oh well, President Joe Biden has lied 75 times since he's been in office. Well, didn't tell the full truth 75 times since he's been in office. He fluffed it a little bit." And I'm like, okay, well, President Donald Trump lied 1,150 times. No, actually, it was more than that. But I think maybe in the first year or so, it was thousands of lies that were told. So if we want to do a lie meter here, I mean, let's talk about
it. Yeah, I agree with you on that. But I'm just, my thing is, I'm just wondering now that social media is playing a major part, is that when it just comes down to it, like, and we talk about technology. I mean, it's like now that thing is being used like you would never believe. And so I think there's a lot to be learned there, because I think now, because of how things are going right now, the lies are still flowing, but they're not coming like every millisecond.
Right.
There's no time for that. Exactly. So they're still coming, but they're not coming every millisecond, because every millisecond, all over social media, there's a lie, and the biggest lies are always on Facebook. Oh, that's where the most lies are being planted, and they're being planted there because so many folk are getting stuck on Facebook. And I'm trying to understand, what are you looking for on Facebook when Facebook has got nothing but lies?
I mean, it feels like a lot of social media is becoming a lie. Facebook is bad. X is really bad too, but I agree with you 100%. And I'm gonna leave it there, because that right there I can talk on all day about how it needs to be better regulated and things of that nature as well. But I'm gonna leave it alone, because I'm taking away people's freedoms.
Okay, that's what's up. I understand. How do you incorporate diversity and inclusion into your work?
I think one of the examples I gave earlier that I think would speak to this was people-centered. When you develop something, for example, a program or a project for HBCU students like the one that I've been working on, diversity in that space might look like young folks that are Black that go to HBCUs from different universities, but ensure that they make up the demographic that is needed for that. Diversity can also look like with the crime commission, people of lived experience who went to jail when they were young, who have a different mindset, people who went to jail when they were young, who are now successful entrepreneurs and business owners that have turned their lives around. So people who have professional experience in mental health, who are teachers who see these young people each and every day and engage with them, law enforcement from different agencies who have crime data that exists out there, but expertise and understanding of the law, federal judges who understands what the sentencing is, and how we can improve the conditions of our jail and release nonviolent offenders on their own recognizance if they have not been indicted at the 90-day mark. they all come with expertise. And even the person that people oftentimes doubt, they are expert in their own right, because no one can tell them about the life or the experience that they have had except them. Nobody can tell their story like them. So that is diversity to me. It's bringing all the voices in the room to make a collective impact for one goal.
Mm, I love that. And you know something? I'm gonna tell you while I'm sitting here while we're going through this show. I want you to know what ran through my mind
Uh-oh.
when we got more than halfway through this. I was thinking, I need to, I definitely hope you come back to the show, but I need to have a show with representatives from different states that have some similar situations like you and some other folk that I know of that's got some similar situations. And we need to have another roundtable on that
I love
because
it.
that's real.
Hodgepodge.
I can hear you.
I said, like a little hodgepodge. We all kind of come together and just do a round table.
Yes, a roundtable.
Okay.
What are some lessons you have learned throughout your career that have shaped your approach to leadership?
Mm. Knowing that you are not the smartest person in the room. And knowing that you're very similar to a football coach. I think about Deion Sanders, who I'm still mad at for leaving Jackson State University and going to Colorado. But Deion, when he was a professional football player and a college player and a high school player, he had a skill set, a talent. And on somebody else's team, he might have went in as a positions coach, but he was a head coach. And what you do in leadership is you got your head coach and you have these assistant coaches and everybody's position coaches surrounding you because they bring a skill set that you might not be well versed in or ideas that you might not have to make you the better leader. And of course, people are looking at you because you're the main attraction, but every good leader has people that are helping them go forward. For me,
A great supporting cast.
that's right. For me, that's the community. They inform those things. Their experiences inform the work that I do. I don't do it just to do stuff. They say what they need. They said what they need. And so supporting cast is important and knowing and recognize that you don't know it all. And sometimes just shut up. just shut up. And it's a lesson that I'm learning that not every idea, everything that you feel and think needs to be spoken. Stop talking about it and start being about it. Because sometimes as leaders, we start prematurely speaking about the thing, the idea we've been given, and people start to eat away at it because they don't understand what you were given in the process. So as a leader, that's important to me as well. So I'll just say those three things.
Okay. How do you prioritize and manage your time effectively between your various roles?
That's the calendar. Yeah, it's pretty simple. Like if you can see my computer now, I list down every day when I wake up what are the tasks. So I have this thing called ABCs that I learned in undergrad. Your A's are the priority, time sensitive things that have major consequences if they don't get done, like you're gonna lose your job. Uh, the B's they are priority, but they may not be as time sensitive. Maybe it's three to 6 months out versus the A, which is maybe a week or 2 or 3 weeks out, but it still has some consequences. The C is maybe something that it's kind of has a lot of flexibility in it. It doesn't have a lot of consequences, but it's a thing you can get to when you get to because it's just there and it'll happen, but nobody's waiting on it. That's the way I kind of organize my day. So I start in the morning with my notebook. I write those things down for my full-time job, what I plan to accomplish today, what I need to get towards, and what's time sensitive. I do the same thing with my consulting, and then I do the same thing with the political piece as well. And that's how my day kind of shakes out, and that's how I kind of stay organized. And sometimes you have to adapt and shift. Not with my full-time because I have to be dedicated to that, but with the consulting and the politics, sometimes one may trump the other based on what's the priority.
Okay. Um, What impact do you hope to leave through your work as a public servant and consultant?
I just want to leave people better off. That's it. I'm not looking for some grand gesture. I'm looking that the people in my community who I swore to serve, that they are better off than they were when I got in office.
Mm.
That's it.
I tell you, you know what? Your humbleness makes everything just so wonderful. Because I think you can always be humble, but you know something? I think you've also got to start thinking about, giving yourself some credit because all the things you do, you need to give yourself some credit. If you don't, then it's almost like you always gonna feel a whole lot more of that pressure that we were talking about earlier. You got to give yourself some credit because you're doing a lot.
I appreciate that's hard. That is an area of personal growth that I am working on in therapy. Again, like I said, I don't celebrate the victories or the wins because I'm so focused on the next big thing that I'm trying to accomplish. Even now, I won't go on a vacation because I feel like I got to get these 10 things off my list before I go on vacation, even though I just did a wonderful thing that impacted 100 lives right there. That's just way it's a reward system for me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Oh, boy. See, it's always good. I'm telling you, it's always good to look in the mirror. But I love listening to you. I'm gonna tell you this because I need to move on. But when I was talking to my therapist, I want to tell you something. When I released my first book, when I start growing this podcast, when doing my accounting and tax preparation and consulting business, I just did all that, and I was saying that I hadn't accomplished anything. Until somebody said, look. And when I looked, then it's like, okay,
yeah,
I did do that. I did do that. And I did do that. So now I celebrate me a whole lot more than I used to, is the premise.
I hear that. I do. I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna leave it alone. My struggle with it, and I'll be very transparent with you, is that why am I celebrating my calling? This was the thing.
Yeah, it's your calling.
But it feels weird to celebrate the thing that I've been positioned to do because it was for me. And so I think that's what I struggle with. That's what I talk about in therapy. And again, it's something I'm working through, but it's hard to celebrate the calling when it's like a job. Like I don't celebrate when I'm in my full-time job and I go and do a training with a medical provider on cultural humility. Ooh, that's my job. So I'm paid to do. So it's kind of like, why am I here?
I hear you. How do you stay informed about current trends and developments in your field?
I read first thing I do before I brush my teeth in the morning, roll out of bed, is I pull up my phone. I read the newspaper. It's going to be the Enterprise Journal, which is our local newspaper. It's going to be the Washington Post or the New York Times because I like to get the far right and the far left kind of what they're saying and then make my own informed decision. And then as far as what's happening in my community, how I stay informed, it's again keeping people around me who are going to hold me accountable and inform me. So like maybe there's something that's happening. Representative Porter might say, well, hey, Justin, this is happening. Mayor Lockley may say, this is happening. Can you be here for this? Or here's an opportunity for you to be engaged in the community to learn about some things. So for me, that's kind of just, I don't want to make it seem simple, but that's just kind of my perspective on how I navigate the changes that may be coming about in my community and ensuring that I have knowledge of them. So, because you're only one person, you can do so much.
Well, that's true. That is true. And you don't want to put so much on yourself either.
Right.
What are some key strategies you use to foster collaboration and partnerships in your work?
One, I think about, do our values align? You asked a question earlier about values that inspire or that I do to used to lead my work. If our values on the line, that's the person. No, there's no collaboration that's gonna happen because I can't shift that. It doesn't matter. The other thing is, who am I going to work well with? Who and when I say that, who am I going to bring to the table that has a different perspective and a different set of ideas and skills that I don't have that are going to make this collaboration stronger? It doesn't make sense for me to go and get somebody who does the same thing that I do or have the same mindset, because I'm not challenged at that point. The other thing is, where are the resources coming from? Is this a free thing? It makes it a whole lot easier. If it's a funded thing and I got to go ask for money, and it's a county and a city working together, then we got to figure out where we're pulling the pot of money from to make this thing work. So those are like kind of the top three questions that I kind of think about in my head. But one other thing is, what is this organization or this person's reputation in the community? That does not mean I won't work with that person, but it may limit in what capacity I work with that person or how I work with that person. Do I meet with them in public? Do I meet with them in private? Things of that nature. So those things come up.
Okay. How do you define success in your dual roles as a public servant and consultant?
Man, I don't think, ain't you? Results. I know that I have accomplished the thing that I needed to accomplish when I get the results that I want to get.
Okay.
Yep.
So are you results driven?
Oh, very much so. Like I said earlier, when I develop a plan for an initiative, it has what I'm expecting to get out of it, because how can I translate that to other people who need to vote on a measure to move it forward if they don't understand, okay, you want to do this, but what is the why? What do you want to get out of this whole thing? Again, I want the reduction in crime. I want more young people engaged in the community. I want more clergy at churches, more community events. I want to reduce teen pregnancy by 15%. Whatever it is, I have to have a number, and I use SMART goals. And then underneath that, develop these kind of set of expectation objectives that I want to achieve.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for blessing us with your presence. But, and it's just a pleasure having you on the show. Is there any other little nugget you like to drop for our audience tonight, or leave them your contact information if they want to ask you questions?
Yeah, I'll say this. The hardest thing about public service and leadership in public service is that along the way, you will come across very challenging moments. But I am here to tell you that those challenging moments are meant to drive you, not block you. And to not be deterred when you hit the roadblock, when you hit the speed bump, but to think about how you can adapt and be flexible and find the other avenue to get to the point that you're trying to get to. So expect the challenges, embrace the challenges, because I'm a firm believer, and I say this to everybody, anything that doesn't challenge you, it doesn't grow you. And so when you're being challenged, God, the universe, whoever you believe in, is challenging you and preparing you. He's building the stepping stone, the stairwell or the stairway to your next level in this process. So embrace it, accept it, own it. And as far as contact information, if anybody wants to reach me, my number is 769-276-9336 for any questions that you might have. And my email is Justin, A as in Apple, Lofton, Lofton @gmail.com. That's my personal email. If it's related to county business, ideas that you might have is Justin L @PikeCountyMS.gov.
Well, to our listeners, I want to thank you all for tuning in to American Black and White. I want to thank you, Justin, for blessing us with your presence. You were a great guest, and I hope that we could have you back sometime again on the show because I think, this has truly been a very great show. And I want to thank you for your time. And I want people to stay tuned for more inspiring stories from individuals making a difference in our communities. So until next time, you all have a great evening, and thank you all for being here, and have a good night.